I'd rather be with you. Yeah.
All right, I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Good Vibes Radio, the online live shows dedicated to discover daring entrepreneurs. I'm Alice. I'm the CEO and co-founder of The Family. And as you know, at The Family, we believe that anyone can become a great entrepreneur. It doesn't mean that everyone should become a founder. It means that a great entrepreneur can come from anywhere. And that's why for the last 7 years, my team and I have been working hard on providing education, tools, and access to capital to more than 100 startups a year. You may have heard of some of them like Algolia, Payfit, Each, or Joe. And since the beginning of the crisis in Europe, we've all been confined to home. And that's why we started Good Vibes. It's an interview I run every day. And we did more than 60 interviews as of today. You can find them on YouTube. And it's been really important for us because it was a way to keep the connection tight with our founder and support each other. Not only inside our community of founders, but also including the 70,000 people following us on YouTube. Most of my guests are fellow entrepreneurs from The Family, but sometimes I accept, only if they are very exceptional, other founders. And that's why today I am very, very, very glad and honored to have Alexis, the co-founder of Reddit, the son of an undocumented immigrant, as you say it on Twitter, from Armenia. And he is also a business dad, and he's married to the greatest athlete of all times, Serena Williams. Thank you, Alexis, for being with us today. We'll have a 40-minute conversation. How are you?
Doing pretty well, all things considered. I've been, here in Florida in my little bubble with my family for the last few months, like everyone just sort of adapting. And yeah, unfortunately, the United States has not handled this as well as any of us would have liked. But, we're all finding our new centers and adapting best we can. But very happy to be here. I know I had to reschedule a couple times. I had a lot of stuff come up in the last 2 months, as you may have seen in the news. So I had a lot of things on my plate that I didn't quite expect. But anyway, happy to be here. Very happy.
Oh, cool. So to all the entrepreneurs who are here right now, please feel free to ask all of your questions. Alexis can read it directly, and you can feel free, Alexis, to answer it. I have a lot of questions, so I will start. But to all of our audience, feel free to ask questions. It's really made for that. So, of course, let's start first by the very obvious topic, which is entrepreneurship and your journey as an entrepreneur, having started a community-based business. Reddit's the number 4 of the front page. We call it the front page of the internet, right? Like. And many people go on Reddit. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, like the very, very, very beginning of Reddit?
Yeah, I mean, I was at university. I was a history major and a business major, but I loved my history major, and I was going to be a lawyer. And in the United States, you have this test, the LSAT, which you study for like years in order to get into law school. And those grades help you determine what law school you get into. And I was 30 minutes into doing the LSAT, and it was Saturday morning, and I was very hungry. So I left, and I just walked out, and everyone in the room was like, "The hell is this guy doing?" And I walked out, and I went to a very, very fancy American restaurant called Waffle House. I don't know if you could see this.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, open place to get like breakfast food, like waffles and whatnot, eggs, and very, very American. Like it's so American. And anyway, I was sitting there eating breakfast, and I realized if I just walked out of the most important test for me to take in order to become a lawyer, I probably shouldn't be a lawyer. And instead, I decided I was going to have to come up with a new career. And I had a college roommate at the time who he already had a job lined up as a software engineer at this company in Virginia. But I said, you know what? Quit that job or turn down that job offer and come work with me on something. And, we didn't know what we were going to build. I just knew I needed to convince him to quit his job and work with me. His mom was really mad at me for the first couple of years, but then, we ended up starting Reddit, which we sold about 2 years later for $10 million. And, she was happy with that decision in hindsight. But even then, we really didn't know what we were doing. This is 2005. Facebook was still in colleges and Twitter didn't exist. Most of these think YouTube probably started around the same year. And we were all figuring it out as we went, to be frank. And so, I stayed at Reddit for another few years after I left in 2010 to go to Armenia, to go back to the motherland. And I was a volunteer for a really good nonprofit called Kiva. Lived there for 4 months, worked, volunteered, and just got away from the tech industry for a bit. When I came back, started another company, started a venture capital fund. I worked at Y Combinator for a little bit. And then I came back to Reddit in 2014 to help lead the turnaround. And it was now independent, but there was a lot of work to do. It was pretty bad. And then I left again in 2018 once the turnaround was in a much better place, and went back to being an investor full time, and was just on the board up until, a couple of months ago. I can't even remember how long ago that was now, 2 months ago, when on the 15-year anniversary, coincidentally, the 15-year anniversary of starting Reddit, I resigned from the board. And I've been pleased, because I know you're going to ask me. I'm pleased to see the progress that Reddit has made since. I'm going to spend a lot of time thinking about the things that I could have done better or been able to execute that I wasn't in my time there as a board member. But I think it's a step in the right direction. And like I said in that video, I'm going to spend all of my time being as deliberate as I can to try to help the tech industry, help these tech platforms live up to their fullest potential. And also, finally, I hope, show some leadership in a really, really important time, not just in this country, but in this world. So I got a lot more work to do there. But it's been a hell of a journey. And, again, I'm grateful for all the experiences I got building Reddit. I still have people who come up to me and tell me that they beat alcoholism thanks to Reddit, or they found their co-founder thanks to Reddit, or all these wonderful stories. And I really do want those to be the legacy of Reddit, and not the hate communities or the things that have fostered
a lot of social networks,
a lot of problems. Yeah, I want it. I think the strength of the community is real on all social platforms. And we've definitely reached a kind of, a couple of years ago, I was on TV telling people we'd reached peak social. And what I meant by that was, the follower model, the Facebook type model of building a social network that's very antisocial is done. It's been done for a while. And just now in the last year, we're starting to see a lot of really great innovation as people are reinventing what sort of social networking could look like. And I think it's going to be much more community based, because it's going to provide, frankly, a better experience for users. But it's also going to allow for, I hope, a different generation of founders. I started Reddit 15 years ago. The founders I meet now, and I take pride in being the first person to write a check for and believe in founders at the same stage I was, when it was just an idea, no prototype even. I really believe this new generation of founders is far more aware of their responsibility than we were 15 years ago, and that's exciting to me, because I want that change.
At that time, you were studying law, and you were already fighting for a more open internet. This social network Reddit is organized in a very interesting way. It's around the conversation. It's not around the individual.
That's right.
It's not narcissistic in a way. It's like there are some people joking, and you can join and comment and add value to the conversation.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, we weren't. I had run a forum, a web forum on PHP BB software throughout college, where I had like maybe 1,000. Actually, I'll pull up this really embarrassing video that I found lately, where I had like maybe 500, 600 users, and it was fascinating to me to watch like running this forum in college to see how passionately people cared about discussing everything from politics to news. And this was definitely on my mind as we were building Reddit, and really just improving upon what had already existed in forum software and trying to be really deliberate about building something that made sense for a new era of tech users. But, 15 years has gone by. This is, I think, still a huge opportunity for someone to come in and build. And that's why I think the future of social in a lot of ways is going to be a lot more community-based, because those same values are true. It's just we need, and I think users are asking, you hear my daughter in the background. This is my office is also a daycare Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. But this sense of possibility it's gotten people very excited, but then without really deliberate building, without really deliberate work, you also can create places where, some of the worst of us can gather and find community and find purpose. And so, the way I think about it these days is, a platform like Facebook no doubt creates a kind of filter bubble and enforces someone's worldview because they only see, content that makes sense for them, right? Or that they want to see, which is problematic in a lot of ways. Oh, here we go. I'll put this in the chat thread.
Yeah.
This was a hype video I made on a potato. The quality is so bad, back in like 2004, 2003, even before we launched, Reddit, when I was just running that forum. But you can kind of see the aspirations even back then. Now is
to be honest, it's really not about me. It's about you guys on the other end of the monitor. Really, this whole website, everything was just sort of social experiment. All I had was keep the free voice their own opinion.
I don't hear anything.
The audio quality is so terrible.
You
you should just listen, follow the link, listen to headphones. But this was a year or two before Reddit, but this was very much on my mind. But what wasn't was more broadly the repercussions of it and the impact of it. And so if we all agree Facebook has this material impact on what people consume and how they perceive the world, and that's real. This is like the platform media debate. And it's like, at the end of the day, I understand why these tech companies want to be perceived of as platforms. But if the public perceives them as media, if the impact they have is like media, then that's the reality, right? Perception is reality there. The thing that's going to be really important going forward is if we take this metaphor a little further, and the impact that Facebook has is sort of equivalent to like newspapers or radio or media, right, of the past, because it's informing how people can see the world. Then we look at community platforms, and there's actually another threshold, because community platforms aren't just a source for news. They are, and we know from surveys and research, like we know that that's a source of news for people. It's also a source of community. And again, when that's a good thing, when it's helping people deal with alcoholism or helping them meet someone else who loves coffee, right? It's great. It's a sense of community and belonging. But it's also problematic because, if the media site alone is the source of, say, the propaganda or misinformation, the printing press, the newspaper publication, whatever, the community centers are basically the beer halls and the meeting rooms where communities can form, and where, even though the vast majority of the time everyone's just getting in the beer hall or the pub to watch a football match because they're all the fans of the same team, and it's great and it's wonderful and we love it, it still can be used for ill. And then what is the responsibility when you're seeing not just misinformation spread, but also a sense of community belonging created in your space, in your beer hall? So it's not just your printing press, it's also your beer hall that is anti-societal or really problematic. And that's the part where, I mean, look, I studied post World War II German history. So I think it is going to be really important to understand the depth of impact these platforms have, because I am certain folks are going to check the receipts in the years to come, and it is going to be really important that we, as we're building these community platforms, take responsibility for the fact that this runs deep. It's not just misinforming someone. It's helping them realize, oh, I'm not alone. You and I, we're brothers in this. We have this connection. You're giving me identity. You're giving me purpose. And what happens as that radicalizes someone? Because look, this isn't just about, Hans telling his wife, like, yeah, I'm going to go down to the beer hall on Tuesday for my weekly meeting. My mom was a German immigrant, so I can do a really good German accent. Ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch auch. So this isn't just Hans going down to the Kneipe once a week for his meetings, right? The Kneipe, the beer halle is on his phone. He can join the beer hall. He can join the community every day. He can be on at his work and take a lunch break and hop into the beer hall for 20 minutes. And so I think we all agree the power of community is very strong. We all celebrate when it does really good things, like helping someone realize they're not the only, when someone is a homosexual in a small community, they realize they're not alone. They realize that they get opened up to a sense of belonging and comfort. That is amazing. And we champion it, and it's important. But if you can accept and celebrate all those good things, then you have to logically accept and worry about when those exceptions do happen and the spaces that are being created are reinforcing really anti-societal things. And that's the part, I really believe that reckoning will come over the next 5 to 10 years. And that's why it is so important, not just for the existing platforms to be reminded of this and pushed on this, but also for the emerging ones to be really, really thoughtful with what they're building and the spaces they're creating. And again, I will have the rest of my life to think about the things that I would have liked to have done better and the things that I wish I had argued for more successfully. But all I can do is going forward, try to be a part of a progress that helps make things better.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because you've been introducing it earlier. So you've stepped out of the board of Reddit, and this is a huge symbol. You said, I want the next board member to be black.
Yeah.
Right? And you said, okay, I need to prove now, and I need to do things to show that the situation is changing. We all need to do things so that we have less this huge gap when it comes to diversity in tech. But still, it's a strong symbol that you've been doing. I think it's important to remind to all of the privileged people the norm. Being white and a man in tech is being the norm in a way, and
tall. I really lucked out. I'm 6'5". No, there's literally data on the fact that tall men get paid more. Like, it's a joke. No, I check every box for the genetic lottery as a wealthy straight white guy who's also tall in tech. Like, I'm aware of this, and look, it is I know it's a weirdly contentious thing, because I definitely get the occasional DM from other guys in tech who are, I think, frustrated with maybe some of the things I say or do and don't quite understand, or think they'll say it's oh my God!
Like you feel guilty?
No, it's more like, oh my God, virtue signaling is the phrase that's become very popular, where the perception is this is clearly something that I am doing in order to make people like me or celebrate me or retweet me. This kind of social activism through tweeting, just to show like I'm a good person. That's it. It's in order to sort of get praise or get upvotes. And it is disappointing. I think the best way to confront this is to have more of these conversations and not less. And I'm always willing to engage on this stuff. I'm happy to, even when people come at me with the heat, like, I love getting into it, because pain is growth. And I literally have this on my wall here because I have a little home gym.
And your wife knows that because it's really like a sports thinking. Pain is
very
growth.
much. Oh, 100%. It's technically a Schwarzenegger quote. So in my head, I just imagine your pain is growth. But it is, and absolutely every athlete knows it. It is it's literally when those muscles are tearing, that pain that you feel when you're pushing some more weight or pushing yourself a little further, that's actually where growth happens the next day or over the next 24 hours as you're recovering, because as that muscle tears and then rebuilds, you're getting stronger. And so the way I try to explain this to my fellow like privileged white dudes in tech is like, look, have those conversations. And when someone challenges you on something and says like what you just said was sexist or racist or what you just did was those things, because I do believe the vast majority of people are good. They're fundamentally good people. But that doesn't mean you can't be racist or be sexist. And in fact, I think if we can adopt a mindset that is
especially Alexis, when the whole society and the whole system has been built on racism.
And it's not, and it's about separating the fact. In the United States, a generation of us, I'm definitely in the generation that was all told, look, don't be racist, period, by a lot of their parents. Well-intentioned parents were like, don't be racist. And I actually think there's a great book on this, White Fragility. I actually think it was the wrong advice, in that the conversation should start, look, you're racist because you inherit a system that is racist. So because right now so much of the wall comes up because we were all told don't be racist. Racists are evil. Racists are bad. And we're like, of course we don't want to be those. We're not bad people. And so when we hear it, the wall comes up and we stop listening. And so I want to move. I would hope we can move. And this is the advice to the folks who ask, like, let's move past and just assume like, yeah. And I'll be the first to admit, like I'm very fortunate in a lot of ways because I have I have a partner where I know the default state is love and compassion. It's the safest way to experience this because I know at the end of the day, we are a team and she loves me. And so when she tells me about things that I do that are inadvertently, right, racist, sexist, etc., I can take a beat and it still stinks. And it's still like, what? Because I'm tensing up because throughout my childhood, I was told not to do it. And I know it's bad and I don't want to feel bad. But then I try to sit with it. And before I get defensive and before I react, I just listen and I ask to better understand. And look, like there are still times I walk away from conversations not really fully understanding, like not and agreeing is not the right word, but like it doesn't have to make sense to you. This is part of the process, is understanding and having that dialogue, because a lot of the time it will. And you'll be like, oh, Jesus, I didn't realize how it made you feel. That's really helpful. I want to do better. I want to be better. And it's not like I'm never going to get to a stage where all of a sudden it's like, ta-da, not racist. Like I will spend the rest of my life trying to be better. And I would like us to get in that mindset as a society here in the States, because we have such a brokenness and so many unresolved issues that if we're in this binary mindset of either racist, not racist, never going to get anywhere. We're never going to get past. We just need to accept it's only going to try to be less racist every day. And that, and we're going to make missteps. And so a part of it too is, I think the downside of social media is the frenzy of either love or hate. Oh, hey, kitty. And it's funny, here in the States, we're talking a lot about cancel culture right now. And it's a weird phrase because I grew up, I built Reddit. So I have been canceled on Reddit a half dozen times. I think what cancel culture, because when you run a social media platform at that size, anytime you do something the community doesn't agree with, even if it's a really minor thing, right? Everyone flames you, you get a bunch of DMs. And so that's just how I know my professional life, because I've only known that for 15 years. But now I think it has reached, there are enough people online now where the average person can now be the target of this. And so now it's like, oh, okay, this thing that I took for granted because I grew up as a professional doing, being a sort of a part of it, being on the receiving end of it. Now as a society, we're trying to figure out, because a bunch of people we didn't usually be able to hear from we can now hear from, and people in power don't like that. And there is this balance where I do hope that we will, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of like an immune system. I think right now the society is still just reacting to lots of trauma and still trying to like send white blood cells to help make it better. But eventually we'll find a new equilibrium. And I just hope, we can keep in mind that there are going to be there are plenty of people who deserve it, who are just bad people. But there's a large, the vast majority of people are actually default good people who we just need to understand. And we need to move into a mindset of like, this is always going to be about growth. There's no end game here. It's like, people are going to screw up. I'm going to screw up. Everybody's like in a position of this much privilege, especially at a time where there's such a growing gap.
You have so many, we have so many blind spots.
Yeah. And, but I think the one interesting thing that I've noticed though, and that I predict for the next 5-10 years is sadly we're gonna move to a much more fragmented internet and fragmented world, and you're seeing, I mean, China's been doing this for a minute because they have such a massive economy, they can do it. But I think in America in particular, we're going to see a lot more isolation from the rest of the world and that mentality. And I think as more and more countries and economic zones really start looking inward, it's going to have an unforeseen impact on the internet. I hope it makes us more interested and more curious in seeking out more of these other sort of worlds. But I don't know. I really don't know.
And what Alexis, like, what would you give as an advice for startup founders who want to hire people from the diverse, like they want a diverse team? Okay, how should they behave? How can they do?
Because
most of my founders are telling me, Alice, I'm not receiving enough CVs from people from the diversity.
Okay, so on one level, yeah, there is so much. There are so many people who are actually expert at this. You should have come on and answer this. From my point of view, yeah, it takes work for sure. It has to be really intentional. You have to do outreach. You really have to like make an effort to do it. Actually, one of our newest partners at Initialized, Caitlin Holloway, who's been doing people and culture, running people and culture at startups for years, has done some really great work on this and tweeted a good bit about it. And she's got a bunch of resources and individuals who are like, you could talk to them specifically about this. But it really starts with being intentional about it. And so there are actual services you can hire. Yeah, there are. I mean, it's not just hire a consultant and it's a magic wand, although there are. I mean, having that, if your company is at a size that you can afford to do that, is great and valuable. But also, there are more and more platforms, certainly here in the US, that are working to connect more underrepresented founders or underrepresented employees with the industry. And so I can't speak to ones that are specific to Europe or France, but I'm sure they're there. But it comes from really caring. I mean, even, you think of the top 3 metrics that a typical startup has. We like 3 just because everything, I think it's a triumvirate thing. I don't know. The 3s are such a big part of culture, certainly Western culture. But like, you have growth, you have some kind of revenue, and then making D&I, diversity and inclusion, an actual like top level company goal has an impact, right? As a leader, you can say like, okay, we want this. And again, it's not just about making it a diverse place, but also an inclusive one. And that's the difference between hiring a bunch of diverse people and then actually making it inclusive for them. And again, I feel a little guilty talking about this stuff because I'm definitely not expert at it. But there's just, I mean, and there's more resources than ever now from thought leaders on Twitter and elsewhere on the net.
Okay. Right. Have you been investing during the crisis?
Yeah.
When you started?
Yeah, I've led a few deals now over this. Well, okay, one. Our firm has led probably 3 or 4. Early stage doesn't really get affected. I mean, there are fewer companies overall to invest in, but the strength of those companies we've found is much better because, with the recession and the pandemic, it's really forced people to solve or to start working on real problems. And so a lot of the kind of BS things have faded away, those like sort of made up businesses. And so the pitches you start to see are the ones that are real, that are generating revenue already, or that have real traction already, because all of this crisis forces you to really make a great business or at least have one in mind when you start, which is a huge leg up. So I think we'll see. I mean, we'll absolutely see some of the best companies we've ever invested in over the next, well, hopefully we've already invested in a few, but over the rest of probably the rest of the 6 months, or maybe even for the next year.
Okay, so I when I said that we were about to have this conversation, I had a lot of people coming to me and giving me some questions. And one thing was like, what would you advise? What would be your advice when you want to create a strong and engaged community? And that's your business. You have a business that is based on community. What would be your advice to start something like that?
Well, first and foremost, you as a founder, at least one of you, has to be super engaged in it. You can think about it like being a party host, right? Like if you show up, if you have a bunch of people come to your house and you don't even leave out any food, like it's gonna be a terrible party. Whereas a great host actually is really thoughtful about everything, from like the music to the way everything looks to the food that's out, to bringing people together, to starting conversations, to setting the sort of standard. The way I would think of this is like, people think online community is different from offline, but all the values, all of the approach is actually more important because it is online. So like, if I invited you over to a party and you walked in the door, your first impression would immediately dictate what kind of a party it was. Right. So like if there's, and that's a variety of things, right? That's what I'm doing as a host. So like if it's a bunch of, interesting conversations and I'm going around and just being helpful, introducing people and whatnot, and it's wine and cheese, like you immediately know what the sense is and how to act. Whereas if you walk in and I've got a lampshade on my head and we're playing beer pong and there's a ton of broken beer bottles on the ground, like, how to act. And that is,
so it's about caring, about taking care of all the little steps of the journey,
and showing up and doing the unglamorous work, which is actually being that party host, being that community leader. And so like the way you talk online to your users is setting the example for like what kind of party they're walking into or what kind of event they're walking into. So all of those same virtues and work that go into offline sort of hosting, absolutely, they matter even more online. And so that's the unglamorous part, and you definitely have to have the right personality and mindset for it. But you can't outsource it early. You can outsource it over time. If you do it well, you'll actually start seeing people from within your community volunteering to take on a bigger and bigger role as moderators or what have you. And
do you invest in community-based business, or you're too much of an expert to be tolerant? No,
I think they're absolutely product decisions that I would have made differently, with the benefit of hindsight. Like it was really haphazard how mods were created or how mods were added. And in hindsight, I would have actually built something that probably looks a little bit more democratic because it's all software, so that you could actually vote in and out mods because they're, volunteers, and without sort of term limits. Without any check or balance on them. Hey, baby. There's a downside to it. No. Hold on. Okay. We just recorded 4 seconds of this on my amp. Anyway, that could have been much worse. She pushed the good button. But so I think that is something you can do right in product now based on the lessons learned. And that's the great advantage is I think, founders have now seen 15 years of social media in different forms. And so as they're building these new systems, they can really be deliberate about what works, what doesn't, and build it with that growth in mind, because they can already see the missteps that we might have made.
Okay. One last question for you, because we are already at the end. It went so fast. Alexis, how do you see the post-COVID era?
Work will definitely be much more flexible. Companies will be a lot more global in their talent. And again, this is why it's interesting, because I think we're going to see more and more sort of cloistered internets, but we'll see talent more global than ever. And I think that's hopefully going to be a good thing. Right now, the U.S., I'm saying this also optimistically because of what a stupid immigration policy the United States has taken. Because, Canada is going to be the biggest beneficiary of our boneheaded policies, because so many talented immigrants are going to go there to start businesses and create jobs. But I think the COVID has basically accelerated. There, you can hear different phrases for this, but like, it's taken what would have been 10 years of tech advancement and had it happen over 10 weeks. Like, so many industries have now been drastically affected, where if they didn't have software, if they didn't have the ability to get margin, even during this crisis, they're either going to go out of business or they're going to just desperately need software solutions now. And that's a huge sea change. And so it's never been a better time to be building technology products. So I know it's, for all the trauma this has caused, telehealth is probably the easiest example, certainly in the United States, but I assume in the rest of the world, telehealth just leapt ahead 10 years because of COVID, because it was really important to stay in your home and be able to get in touch with a doctor. Or for the hospitals and medical facilities here in the US, it just became 100 times more valuable to triage a patient and keep them at home and not have to bring them in and waste a bed. Not waste it, but use a bed that could be used for someone else who really, really needs it. All of that stuff just hit in a few months. That's radically changing the way things get done. And it's good. It's going to help, I think, save a lot of lives and bring quality healthcare to more people. But that's the COVID effect. But you're seeing it in one form or another across every industry, for sure.
Yeah, true. Okay. Thank you very much, Alexis.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. I hope I will see you one day in Paris. I know you.
I hope so.
Paris.
Love Paris. Big fan of Paris. Went on my first, was it the first date? Yeah, basically went on our first date in Paris. So big fan.
Yeah, I know that. I've been following this story.
Right on.
It was a pleasure to exchange with you, Alexis.
Likewise.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with us during this moment. You can now click on networking and have one-on-one meetings with everybody, chat roulette every 5 minutes. You're going to enjoy. Talk about what Alexis has been talking about. It was a real good conversation. Thank you very much, Alexis. I know it's the beginning of the day for you right now. Yeah. So enjoy your day, and I will enjoy my weekend.
Please do enjoy it. Merci beaucoup.
Bye bye. Merci.